Hi, it's Wednesday. Welcome back. Sorry, I'm a couple minutes late. I'm running directly from work and, of course, traffic, and wanted to make sure. I actually like doing this at home. It's just much more comfortable. I can do it on the fly, but, this is a whole lot easier. So, welcome to Q&A Wednesday. I've got a great topic today. I want to talk a little bit about something that has happened to the majority of us. You know, when we go backwards from a goal, sometimes it's a little disconcerting and a little frustrating to see that, maybe we've put some weight back on or, just gone a little bit backwards, and that can really affect our self-esteem a little bit. And so we want to talk a little bit about what to do about it, because there is something that you can do. And having been obese the majority of my adult life, huge, especially my first couple of years after losing the majority of the weight, I really struggled with that kind of fact and fear of putting the weight back on. And so I've got a few tips for you today, because you know what, you should never beat yourself up. I don't do the guilt thing anymore. You shouldn't either. I don't think that it's healthy. Your body works really, really hard for you. And I think it's important that you should respect yourself and love who you are and love where you're at. I think that that's extremely important. So hopefully you are having a great week. It is hotter than Hades out here. I enjoyed the boat races this weekend and had a great time. It's actually great to, for once, not even have to think about being on competition prep, because it's just a whole different ballgame. I'm telling everybody I have to learn to be a civilian again, and it's a little weird, just to find that balance. But, the benefit for my clients and the people that I work with is that, it kind of brings me back to the things that they still deal with. And although I remember it really wasn't that long ago that I was 210 pounds. So I get it. I get what the obstacles are and those kind of things. But it's kind of fun to find the balance of enjoying life and not having to worry about, the craziness of stepping on stage in the near future, because I am truly done. So thank you. Rodney's given me some compliments there. He's appreciating my shoulders and my biceps. So, but let's get to it. Again, most of us have been in a position where maybe we've gone a little bit backwards from our goals. And actually this thought came to me as I was talking to a really, really great woman that I know. And the first things when I saw her and I was, how are you doing? It's so good to see you. She struggled a little bit with the fact that, she put some weight back on. And I'm like, honey, seriously, don't beat yourself up. It happens, going backwards happens to all of us. We kind of have to step back and look at the balance of our lives and decide what to do with that at that point. So the biggest one that I'm going to tell you is, no matter what, if you've gone backwards, please don't beat yourself up. I mean, we do it. I know we're human, and we tend to be our own worst enemy. But guilt does not get you anywhere. It doesn't help with your self-esteem. And of course, the lower the self-esteem, the more likely you are to actually activate yourself or get yourself moving again. And so we want you to come back to those feelings of, you know what, I deserve this, and get back to it. So, when someone really gets off track, I don't ever slap people's hands. I don't babysit my clients when they kind of fall off the bandwagon. The first thing I do is, okay, take 2 steps back. All right, let's look at where we came from. So let's not make it complicated, because I think that sometimes we feel like, oh my gosh, I have to do all these things again. No, go back to basics. First thing I teach is, number 1, drink more water. Super, super simple and cheap, guys. Come on, what one thing could you do that is so inexpensive, so easy, but yet makes the biggest difference? It flushes your system. It makes your skin look better. It helps your body function at an optimum. So why would you not drink more water? Super simple. The second thing I have them do is, okay, when's the last time you tracked your food? You know what? I get it. Tracking your food sucks. It takes time. I know that it's complicated. Blah, blah, blah. You know what? If it was easy, everybody would do it. So, when you're off track, you got to come back to where am I at? If I don't know what you're eating, I don't know how to help you. So track your food. It makes it super simple. Not only that, but then you're accountable to yourself. You can't justify, oh, well, I'll just eat this extra cookie. Well, then that just puts you over your sugars by like a zillion. So come back to basics. Start tracking your food again. And you know what? Get up and move more. I'm a huge fan of a Fitbit, honestly, just because it's, again, being accountable to yourself. It tells you how many steps you're taking, if you're moving enough, if you're sedentary. Back when I first started, they didn't have a Fitbit. They had something called a Body Bug, which I loved, and no offense to Fitbit, it was actually a little more accurate, but they don't make it any longer, so unfortunately I can't use it. It just went around my arm, and it would track my calories, and it was more by temperature, thermostat, than it was by steps and some other things that the Fitbit uses, heart rate. But what I loved about it was that, it made it almost a game. It made it a competition with myself. So at the time I was teaching school, I was doing a long-term sub position for 6th grade math. And I found I was sitting a lot. And so, by tracking where I was at, it made a huge difference. Oh my gosh, I've been sitting all day. I've only taken 3,000 steps. I was discovering I was a little more sedentary than I really needed to be. So that alone, just getting up and moving and walking around the classroom made such a big difference, because then I was more active. And of course, if you're more active, you're burning more calories overall. So though, just even backing up and starting with those 3 things, if you have completely fallen off the bandwagon, stop where you're at, go back, go to basics, and get moving again. One of the funnest things I've ever heard was that you can start a diet in the middle of a bag of potato chips. It's a choice, right? So you have to stop and go back to basics and start again. So that's a big part of it. But also, I think it's really important when you've gone backwards that you need to take a step back and figure out how you got off track, because something got you there, right? And it happens to the best of us. Maybe stress. Honestly, I used to be an incredibly big stress eater, and it was chocolate. My poor husband, bless his heart, he would hide chocolate around the house. So if Melissa was having a meltdown, we could calm her down with some chocolate. Now he no longer does that because he knows better. But I was a huge stress eater. I would stress because I was bored, or I would I would eat because I was bored or because I was stressed. So, that can cause a lot of weight gain, especially when we tend to eat, when we crave foods that aren't healthy for us and that contain a lot of sugar. So that can be a big portion of it. So if you've had a particularly stressful year, or a few months for whatever reason, a death in the family, or a job change, or, issues with children, whatever it is, that can definitely affect how your body responds, not only to the fact that you're going to crave unhealthy foods, but the cortisol that your body releases in order to deal with the stress, which does actually make you retain belly fat. Now, can you throw a pill on it like the commercials would have you believe? That's crap, guys. Come on now. There is no secret pill. There's no shortcut. But you have to somehow find a way to reduce your stress. But there's ways to do that other than eating. It can be anything from having a massage to yoga is actually a great one. Meditation. I know for some people that sounds ridiculous, but if you haven't tried it, don't knock it, because it actually does work. So, you might have to look back and say, did I have a really stressful year? Am I an emotional eater? That happens to a lot of us. I think that if you have not paid attention to the difference, it is very difficult to know whether you're hungry or hungry. And there is a difference. If you've never felt the physical hunger pangs before, you might not be able to tell that difference. So your best bet, honestly, is when you're craving something that you know is unhealthy, you might actually need to journal your triggers, okay? I know that sounds weird, and I'm going to talk more about this on another Facebook Live, because I think emotional eating is something that a lot of people do. Thanks, Daniel. He's thanking me for the message tonight, so I appreciate that. When you emotionally eat, first of all, a couple things happen. It releases dopamine in the brain, right? When we're eating foods that are comfort foods. And briefly, that makes us feel better, hence the reason that we tend to crave it. The problem being is then we start to go through that vicious cycle of guilt after the fact. And because it's temporary, it's, sugar in general is a drug. Right? It releases dopamine. We feel good briefly. And then as soon as our body comes crashing down from that brief sugar rush, then we start to feel crappy again. And then we crave more. So keep in mind that in order to break that emotional cycle habit of eating, we actually have to figure out what's putting us on that track. So in order to do that, you may have to sit down and think, okay, am I hungry or am I hungry? Is my stomach hungry, or am I? And honestly, it comes down to what are you willing to eat? Like my 9-year-old, I'm hungry. Okay, well, great. There are some vegetables in the fridge. Oh, well, that doesn't sound good. I'm not hungry for that. Well, if you were physically hungry, you would eat whatever you could eat. So you're obviously not hungry. So keep that in mind. But if you figure out what your triggers are, is it stress? Is it maybe you're fighting with your spouse? Maybe there's somebody at work that really stresses you out. Is that when you tend to feel like you need to eat and you start to crave foods that are unhealthy? By doing that and acknowledging that, you can't just shove that information away. We've kind of been taught to stuff our feelings in. It doesn't work. If you don't acknowledge the fact that you're having that craving and that you're feeling that way, you can't make a change. So once you've figured out your triggers, then you can find other ways in order to deal with the stress or with the situation. And again, it can be anything from taking a time out, going for a walk. There are much, much healthier ways to deal with it, but you have to actually stop and consciously think about it and make that decision. Maybe you've had an illness this year. That can be a huge issue with your body if it's not functioning efficiently. If you're dealing with an injury or an illness where your body isn't quite utilizing the nutrients in the way that it should, that can affect your body negatively, or maybe even your hormones are off. That is a huge one as well. So, figure out how you got off track. And again, be okay with it. Forgive yourself. Don't beat yourself up. It's not beneficial. Once you figure out what the problem is, then you can either work with a professional to kind of back up and figure out how to take care of that. You can journal and brainstorm on ways to overcome that. I definitely work with my clients on multiple levels of working with themselves. And the biggest one is when it comes to health, it's not just physical health. Mental and emotional health is just as important and sometimes more difficult to balance than the physical part. I'm going to tell you, to me, the physical part is the easy part. It's the weird stuff that starts to go on our heads that can really mess us up. So that can be a big part of it. The other thing that you have to do in this situation is remember that balance in life changes. What worked for you way back when maybe you lost the original weight or you got fit that time, it may not work the same. If you were really fit and active in your 20s and you're now in your 30s or 40s and you've had kids and life is crazy, you tend to be going in 30 directions like I am, you're going to have some different tactics because the balance has changed. You might not be able to put 2 hours in a day at the gym, which I don't think you should anyway. The one thing that you have to remember is that your health cannot be the last thing on your list of priorities. It can't. I tell people, if you're not happy, well, especially if mom ain't happy, nobody's happy. Mom kind of runs the family. So, we kind of get wrapped up in our lives and our kids and the things going on. And sometimes we put ourselves on the back burner and then everything gets off and nobody's happy and nothing functions efficiently. So, find that balance. Learn that you can have balance. It just changes. It's not always going to be the same. Again, the 2 hours at the gym that you used to be able to spend, it might only be 30 minutes, but it's still 30 minutes that you still need to be there to keep your head on straight and to get that activity level in that you need to. So I talked a little bit about that. I write notes because I think about these things because I think they're important. So just some tips to help you in the situation if you have kind of gone backwards to get yourself back on track. We've talked about backing up and starting with the basics, going back to the things that you know how to do because you don't want to overwhelm yourself. When I work with people, my biggest goal for them is to make this a lifestyle, not just a temporary goal. I don't like New Year's resolutions. I don't like the fact that people can focus on it for like 3 months and then think that they can go back to the same garbage they were doing before and that their body's going to stay the same. It doesn't work that way. I want to create a lifestyle. So if you can slow down and take 1 or 2 habits to change at a time, the better off you're going to be. You've heard people say, okay, 21 days make a habit. Yes. However, if you're trying to change 5 or 6 things for those 21 days, you're probably not going to create a habit, right? Because there's too many focuses, too many things going on. If you're trying to change 1 or 2 things, like drink more water, cutting out sugar, stop drinking soda, those kind of things, 21 days you can do it. But I'm going to tell you, it takes at least 90 days for it to be a lifestyle. It's super easy to do it for 21 days and then think, okay, well, just one. I'm just going to have 1 soda. And then all of a sudden you're back into drinking a 6-pack a day. It happens. It's going to take a little bit longer to create that lifestyle. So that's important. So my first big tip on this, partially for not getting off track, but to try and create the lifestyle, because there are different studies about, whether or not long-term weight loss. And of course, for those of you that know me, I am not a fan of that term. I do not like the word weight loss. I could lose 20 pounds pretty quickly, but it's going to be muscle, right? And I'm not going to be happy with that. I'm much more a fan of talking about fat loss because fat tends to be the problem. That's our storage of the extra calories and extra things in the processed foods and garbage and toxins that we eat. So my first tip in not getting off track in the first place is don't get too far. Don't wait until you're so far off track that it's hard to deal with. If you notice that you're slipping, if you're putting on, your pants are starting to get a little tight, the scale's definitely kind of creeping up just a little bit, it's a whole lot easier to deal with it at maybe like 3 pounds than it is at like 10 or 15 or even 20. because your body responds differently as you put on more fat. So instead of waiting until dealing with a bigger number, if you're noticing something's up, do something about it. I know that people struggle with trying to track their food because, again, it does take time, it does take energy. But in the beginning, I tell people, track your food until you feel like you can eyeball it. Track it until you feel like you have a good grasp on it. You've weighed and measured your food for a while, you know portion control, and then you can stop. You can start working with the eyeball portion of it until you find yourself going backwards. If you start to feel that your pants are a little snug, if things, you don't feel quite right, you don't have the same energy level, you might need to go back to weighing and measuring your food, tracking it, and because, again, that's your accountability. That's the best way to not justify eating that extra garbage that sounds good at the moment, but then you can see what kind of damage that it does. So don't wait until you see too big of a change before you start to, do something about it. Also realize that as you get healthy and as you get fit, that your body has changed. When I the last time I weighed close to 200 pounds was about 2009. It is now 2017. I am not the same physique. When I first, got fit, I was a little soft still. I was building muscle. It made a difference. At this point, I have way more muscle than I did at that point. If I were to go back to the things that I did way back then, to be healthy and to be fit, my body would not respond the same because I am a different physique. So you might have to change some things up a little bit. I tell people the smaller the car, the smaller the gas tank. When I was 210 pounds, I ate 2,400 calories a day and still lost weight. Right now, I don't quite need that many calories in order to maintain where I'm at. Quality calories matter, but it's my body's different, so I eat a whole lot differently. I eat more protein than I used to. Those kind of things. You also need a new goal. Okay, if you find yourself being unmotivated, here's the deal. I can't motivate you for you. I don't know you well enough, nor is that really my job, to be honest. Now, can I motivate you to get going and find something that motivates you? Absolutely. You know what? I believe in you. I'm excited. I'm your biggest cheerleader. But you might need to find a new goal. If things kind of start to be old habit, find something new to accomplish. Maybe run a race or do something that's just different and fun. Play in the pool with your kids, whatever it is that keeps you motivated. But I'm going to tell you that you have to be emotionally attached to your goal in order to keep going. Now, that being said, in the beginning, it might be a little bit of motivation. At some point, it's not necessarily going to be just motivation. It's going to be more commitment. It's going to be more, I can't even think of the word right now. That's just because it's the end of the day. But at some point, you're going to have to keep going long after that feeling of motivation has left you. So figure out what it is that keeps you going. I tell people that your goal has to be so big that your obstacles don't matter, right? So that when that piece of pizza calls your name, you're like, nope, don't need it because I want this more than I want that. That's super important. Don't be overly strict. I don't care where you are at in life. When you tend to be overly strict with yourself, and of course, if you're cutting your calories way too far back, your body's in a starvation mode. But in general, you can't enjoy life if you're overly strict all the time. Now, you might have a temporary goal, like I did when I was competing and getting on stage. And I know that there's an end to that. But even for my regular life, if I'm not happy, what's the point? You still have to live a little. You're going to have to find that balance of, to go any further, do I have to really be way more strict and sacrifice a lot more? And am I going to be okay with that? Now, if I could never ever eat chocolate again, we'd probably be in trouble and not having this conversation because I'd say, screw it. I love chocolate. Am I addicted to it? No, not at this point, but I still enjoy it. So that is part of my life at some point. I just don't need it all the time. Also, again, remember that mental and emotional health are just every bit as important as physical health, and you have to take that into consideration. Sometimes the issues that you're dealing with might need an extra tool, which might require some professional help. Don't be afraid to involve someone if need be, because if you can't do it on your own, you've got to find a way to get to a point where you can be happy and healthy. Because again, health is about your whole being. It's holistic, super important. Most important to me is that no matter what you choose to do to get fit and to get healthy, please do it the right way. Completely constricting your calories to a ridiculously low degree, excuse me, will not benefit you in the long run. As a matter of fact, I just read a really short article that was talking about how they did a study on the Biggest Loser finalists and all the competitors from all the seasons, and how majority of them not only put it back on plus some, and how it kind of came to the conclusion that anyone that loses weight will have a slower metabolism, making it more difficult, or much more difficult, to lose the weight the second time around. Now, I'm going to disagree with that, because I really think that if you do it the right way and you build your metabolism, right, which requires that nobody should be eating no 1,200 calorie garbage. Not a big fan of all of those diets, even the ones run by doctors. I'm so sorry. Doctors get less than a semester of nutrition information. So why they're pushing a 500 calorie diet, I don't get it. I really don't get it. Even just cleaning up your diet and cutting out processed food is going to make such a difference. But if you are a 300-pound person eating 1,200 calories, where are you going to go when you're 150 pounds? You're going to go to nothing? It just doesn't work that way. So I disagree. Now, I think that if you work to lose weight incorrectly, if you tank your metabolism, absolutely, because then all of a sudden your body doesn't know how to deal with food, and it literally thinks you're starving. So it's going to hold on to everything that you do eat. Your body's goals, your body has two goals: to survive and avoid pain. Those are the two goals that your body, and it does it without you even being consciously aware of it. So if you're eating a ridiculously low amount of calories, your body can't sustain that, right? So then your metabolism, crushes to nothing. And as we get older, our metabolism drops anyway, because at some point we're no longer trying to build and grow up anymore. We decline a little bit, but you can still benefit from things if you do things the right way. If you work with a little bit of strength training, you don't have to be huge. That's not the goal. The goal is to have a little bit of strength, some core balance, a little bit of shape. But muscle is a natural fat burner, and it will raise your metabolism. So, I think that you can lean out while you build some muscle and not have the problems with that metabolism drop and issues that they're talking about. Now, again, if you starve yourself and don't exercise, and you just live on Slim Fast shakes or some BS like that, yeah, you can absolutely ruin your metabolism and slow it down. I've had to fix more than one metabolism even before I've started to train someone. So, I know how that rolls. But, if you do it the right way, your body won't fight you on it, and that's important as well. The last thought that I'd like to leave you with, I have lots of people on today, but not many people are saying anything. So either they really like what I have to say or they're tuning out. I don't know. Really, your goal is, we're not all trying to be supermodels. We don't need to be the next NBA player. Our goal is to be the very best version of ourselves that we can possibly be. So if you have slid backwards a little bit, if you have fallen off the bandwagon, stop reaching for perfection. It's not good for your health. It's not good for your mental health. It's not good for your self-esteem. Your goal is to be the very best version of you that you possibly can be. So get back on it. And if you need someone to cheer for you, I'm here. I don't do this because I'm trying to make $1 million. I do this because I want other people to feel what I felt was, I can do this. If I can do this, why can't everybody do this? I was super surprised with the fact that, somebody who had been, I just didn't understand how the body worked. I do today. I want to be there for you. I want to cheer for you. So if you're having issues, you are welcome to message me on Facebook. But if you have ideas, if you have questions, if you have thoughts concerning what we've talked about tonight, please leave a comment below. We all get something from everybody's ideas, something that I might not have thought about, you might put down, and it changes someone's life. So that is important. Above and beyond, you know what? Love yourself, and love each other. We are put on this earth in order to be happy and take care of each other. And I think that there's so much negative going on in the world, and it's so far spread through social media that I think we forget that it could be so much better if we would just cheer for each other. We don't need to put each other down. We don't need to compete with that. We just need to be our best and help others be the same. So Bruce gave me just a quick thing and said that we're bang on with metabolism. I appreciate that. I appreciate that you all tune in. I love this. I want to make sure that everybody understands how your body really does work. And I don't know everything. I know I don't know everything, but I love to learn, and I'm constantly studying. So hopefully I'm always giving you great information. But above and beyond, that, I want you to have an incredible week. It's already August. The summer is, I'm not going to say it's almost over because my kids freak out about that. They're already freaking out about school stuff. You know, we still have a great month to enjoy. And so let's go out and do it. Have an incredible evening. Next week, we will be regular Q&A Wednesday. And hopefully, I'm working on it. I think I've got it scheduled. We will have a special guest for a special Facebook Live Thursday evening. So stay tuned for some more information on that and have an incredible night.